It's been about a month and a half since Fire Emblem Engage was released, and I finally rolled credits. Back when the game first released, I made a Day 1 Impressions video, but obviously my thoughts have expanded and changed since then. I'm a big fan of the Fire Emblem series, having played every worldwide release and even a couple of the unlocalized games that never came west, Engage being the 17th mainline installation. I love these games, and unsurprisingly was incredibly excited for Engage to come out, because really for me, any Fire Emblem is good Fire Emblem. That being said, does Engage live up to my hype? One of the biggest gimmicks to Engage is the reappearance of fan-favorite Fire Emblem characters from previous entries in the series. I like a bit of fan service from time to time, but prior to the game's release, I was admittedly a little worried that these cameos would be lazy and only skin deep. Luckily, however, there was plenty of care taken here and it really added some life to the game for me. Each Emblem Ring character brings their own unique weapons from their games, fun skills and abilities that often reference part of the character's personality, and even a map based on a memorable level from the game they're from. I love these levels, getting to relive old memories with a fun twist, while getting to listen to great remixes of memorable music. It was a lot of fun getting the extra little dialogue from each emblem as you grow a character with them, getting to hear a lot of fun little references to their stories. Some emblems even talk to one another, notably the ones from the DLC being excited to see their old friends who were in the base game. The Bond Ring gacha style system was fun at first, as I enjoyed seeing all the familiar faces that did not quite make the cut to be a real character in the game, but once I saw all the ones I wanted to, I saw no real reason to keep pulling for new Bond Rings, as they were oftentimes just completely outclassed by the main Emblem Rings, which you'll have plenty of to pair with your army by the endgame. Something that's pretty hard to miss when playing Fire Emblem Engage is the bright, eye-catching art style and character designs. I'm still not a huge fan of the talking scenes that are mostly static backgrounds where it presents a situation that looks like you're standing 4 feet from the enemy having a conversation, but the bigger cutscenes for more important story sequences and the look of the maps and animations during gameplay are great. Character animations during battle look fluid and are fun to watch, a big improvement from the previous game in the series, Three Houses. Character designs, for better or worse, are mostly over the top. For better, in that every character has their own style differentiating themselves from their peers. For worse, in that some of the characters just look plain silly. But hey, it's all fun at the end of the day. And then there's Boucheron, who looks like he was originally an NPC.
Boucheron!
Whether you're familiar with or completely new to Fire Emblem's turn-based grid combat, I think Engage shines especially bright here. For reference, my experience is based on playing on Maddening Classic, and I took full advantage of all the DLC items and maps along the way. I'm fairly certain much of what I'll say about the gameplay will translate to any way you may choose to play the game. In comparison to other Fire Emblems, I felt Engage is way more player-face focused this go-round. Things like the break mechanic and chain attacks made it much tougher in my opinion to tank large amounts of enemies. Even dodge tanking starts to fall apart if you get overwhelmed due to the set hit rate of chain attacks slowly whittling you down. Engage throws a lot at you, and in my experience playing the game on Maddening mode, it threw a lot of very scary things at me. Luckily, the game gives you plenty of fun to use, very effective ways to handle these scary threats. Oftentimes, the safest thing for me to make it through a threat wasn't to buckle down and avoid enemies, it was to use the wide variety of skills and weapon options to kill anything in my way before they could really even attack me. An aggressive, offensive mindset was really important in the late game, and I had a blast using the tools the game gave me to overcome any obstacle. The break mechanic was something that worried me pre-release, being unsure that it could be pulled off without being super exploitable, but I think it was handled very well. This mechanic turned the series' staple weapon triangle to 11, allowing you to break an enemy if you hit them with an advantage, preventing them from counterattacking on the next battle. Enemy placements were well thought out, and they were more than happy to break a unit of yours if you left a unit with weapon trial disadvantage in range. Another great new mechanic was the addition of class types. Each unit class in the game fell into one of 8 buckets, bringing special skills, keeping them unique from their counterparts. This mechanic was notable to me because it gave me reason to look outside of just turning all my characters into cavalry or flying units. Backup units tacking on extra chain attack damage, and key adapt units being able to chain guard an ally, preventing them from taking damage, were both pivotal to my strategies to get through maps. These unique skills also extended to the different emblem rings, offering slight variances on the engage skills depending on which of the 8 subsets the character fell into. All of this helps make your character feel a little bit more like they were handcrafted to fit your needs and how you chose to build your team, and offer a good opportunity for replayability with different builds and strategies. I've alluded to it, but I do think it's worth emphasizing how important the emblem rings are in this game. The skills, stats, and attacks these rings give your units were extremely satisfying to use. Most of the rings, in a vacuum, seem super busted, but as good as they were, I think Engage's difficulty pushed me back enough to still force me to be creative and smart with how I use the rings. I loved the cutscenes for each of the Engage attacks, and the way they changed the appearance of each unit depending on the equipped bond ring was a cool touch. My favorite Fire Emblem game, and quite possibly my favorite game of all time, is Fire Emblem Three Houses. Not worth going into the details, but the game is just incredibly important to me. But there is something in a game that stops me from just replaying it over and over again every few months: the monastery. I enjoy the interactions and distractions that Gary Mock offered, but by the end of a playthrough or your second or third and so on, this section of the game could get a little tedious. Fire Emblem Engage follows this new trend with an explorable hub with the Somniel, your magical floating sky castle you can teleport to. I enjoyed the Somniel early on, listening to the relaxing guitar music and meeting all of my allies, but eventually it kind of started going the same route as Three Houses, where the Somniel felt like it was affecting the pace of the game. Now, you don't have to do everything under the sun here, but the things that I did feel like I had to keep doing every time I started to dread. Did I have to do the push-ups minigame each time I wanted to get a Somniel? No, but if I didn't, I was missing out on a free strength boost. Cooking only takes a minute or two, but I didn't want to go play in a menu for the 30th time listening to how good or bad of a dish I just picked out, but once again, the free stats were too hard to skip out on. Some of the more inconsequential activities in Somniel, like the fishing minigame or the Star Fox-like dragon riding rail shooting minigame, were welcome distractions when I needed them, but I am glad they were not basically required every time I went there like the cooking and the push-ups were. Now, I hate to end this on a sour note, but I gotta talk about Engage's not-so-engaging story. Engage follows a very familiar, magical amnesiac destined hero storyline, which really is not that big of a deal, but video game storylines can be full of tropes and junk food for the brain. I'm all here for that. But Engage is just downright silly. You play as the Divine Dragon, which is literally the deity of the other members of your team. And sometimes you can't go 5 minutes, especially in the early game, without being gawked at over and over again. Now, of course, there are exceptions, but really, you rarely have to win anyone over to your side. Mostly you just kind of announce that yourself as the Divine Dragon, and you get new followers to join you. The story is full of goofy plot holes, like enemies escaping after you repeatedly defeat them over and over, and it has its fair share of corny, but admittedly sometimes kinda cool, power of friendship to overcome adversity moments. It almost feels like the story is self-aware with how cheesy it is at times, and once I started to see that more, I came around to it just being more of a fun romp as a vehicle to get you to the next battle rather than a deep story that needed to get fleshed out with meaningful development. At the end of the day, this game really is fan service at its heart, and there is a place for that, but it's still a bad story. I laughed several times, out loud, at some of the more pivotal parts of the story just because it was so goofy. Character supports are plentiful and act as fun little side stories between characters, or they can bring out some deeper motivations and character development if you get to the A supports. Voice acting was great in my opinion, regardless of the actual lines being delivered. Each character felt real, and I could tell the voices behind the screen had a fun time.
Made it. And not a moment too soon. The Crown Prince Alfred of Firenze is here to help. Let me at him.
Fire Emblem Engage is a fantastic strategy RPG weighed down with a story that can rarely be taken seriously and a hub area that can slow down the pace to the crawl if you let it. Engage does a great job bringing back memories from previous games for veterans of the series while helping contextualize some characters past being that sword guy from Smash for new fans of the series. The story is nothing to write home about, but it was fun enough to keep me smiling, whether that be from a genuinely good moment or just laughing directly at the corny dialogue. The thing that matters the most though, the playing of the game, is the best it's ever been in my opinion, and I can't wait to see how the game can continue to surprise me and challenge me in the future DLC. So yeah, while not my absolute favorite in the series, Engage more than lived up to my expectations I had for it, and is more than worth your time if you're a fan of RPGs. Final score, 9 out of 10. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like or subscribing. I read every comment and I try to respond to all of them as well, so if you have any thoughts at all on the game or this video, please feel free to share below. Thanks again, and see you next time.
A stunning performance. I'm impressed.